Hello there, you're watching Sports Tonight Live, the home of opinionated, passionate but intelligent sporting debate. Coming up, the best bits of the week. Whatever you think of them, make sure you get in touch with your views at any time on Twitter, @SportsTonightTV.
Just before the break, we were talking to Perry about his selection, who he'd like to see playing for England. Now we have a right of reply by Mr. Wayne Veazey of Goal.com.
Yeah, I'm going to get my red pen out and highlight where Perry's gone wrong.
In your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion.
Yes.
I mean, actually, the front six is quite reasonable. I don't know if Zaha is entitled to start, since he wasn't in the original squad. I'd go with Ashley Young out on the left. Wilshere, Gerrard, yeah, absolutely, they're the best two.
Would you just have Welbeck on his own, would you, or what?
No, Cleverley.
Oh, Cleverley.
I'd go with Raheem Sterling as well. I think Cleverley sort of...
Tim Cleverley passes sideways.
Yeah.
Who never actually creates any chances, never takes initiative. I love to look at Tom Cleverley's stats for someone who supposedly plays the free sort of role, the creative role. How many goals he's created and how many goals he scored?
Sometimes, when he was at Leicester on loan, he scored a lot of goals. I think
but that's in the Championship.
Yeah, that is.
That's
Alongside Carrick, he's been quite effective for Manchester United in bigger games. I think he's developing. He's not developing quickly. I don't think he's a superstar, but I think he's solid. And in terms of the back five, I'd go with the best available back five. I think England should pick for the first 45 minutes. I think they should pick.
What do you
something
learn?
Like,
but to have international friendlies, everybody's saying we've got to have these friendlies because we have to learn because we don't know what these players.
Let me just read out some of the tweets. It's high time I did. @SportsTonightTV. Thank you for everyone who's already tweeted us. Loads to get through here. David Bomb says, I think friendlies against minnows are pointless, but an away game against Sweden with our injury list is a brilliant test.
We'll see. Yeah, it's not competitive.
Perry, you said to me, what do we learn? Well, if you put Hart, Jagielka and Cahill together, that's a back three that's probably going to be round thereabouts in February for the next qualifier.
You already know what they can do. You've already seen that they can. Cahill's play for England. You know,
well,
he
not
can
that often. We're not often. We're
not
talking like 60 caps each together, have we?
But for international friendlies, are nowhere near as pressurised as
qualifying
games. Look at the Italy game.
Well, Mike McKenna's come up with a good point. He says the problem with this one is the timing. Even with the new ideas and new players, there are 3 months before our next competitive game.
Play Brazil, I think, in February, isn't it?
So what are we losing?
Yeah.
It's what?
It's against Brazil in February, is that?
Yeah, that's a friendly. But our next competitive game is not for
that's
months.
San Marino, so that's not exactly competitive, is it?
Let's have a look. There's another one here. What about Leon Osman, says Bren B, not in your team?
I don't understand the point of putting... If you're... Roy Hodgson, obviously, is looking to qualify, I get that, but if you go back to Germany, what they did, you go to Spain, what they did, they actually thought, right, we have to have a new remit now, and they got rid of older players. Now, Leon Osman...
The under-21s was the basis
yeah, exactly.
of their
Leon
team,
Osman
wasn't it?
has been excellent for Everton. I'm not saying he hasn't, but I don't see the future in Leon Osman. I just don't see the point of him being in there. But I don't...
Okay, so in your team... So Gerrard's a sentimental 100th cap?
No, he's not. No, because
if you go for your young team for
he's in there on performance Liverpool. He's in there because
you said, well, you need.
There's no one else.
By your argument, there is. It's Cleverley.
I don't rate him. No, I just said I wouldn't have Tom Cleverley in my team.
If Parker was fit, would you play him?
Was Scott Parker?
Parker was
not now.
fit?
No, I think no. I'd say thank you, Scott. You did brilliantly when you came in and played for England. You sort of played we needed at the time, but now we've got to be looking to play in a different way. All depends. Again,
I think that game against Germany when we lost so heavily in the World Cup, I just think...
He looked like he was struggling.
Very much a Fabio Capello player, wasn't he?
Capello, to me, he was so slow. I just thought he cannot possibly... We're never
going
to win anything
Roy
with
Hodgson
that.
has picked 47 players.
47 so
I
far.
think that shows... Roy Hodgson, everybody knows, is 4-4-2. Like, if you speak to anybody who was at Fulham, speak to anyone at West Brom...
Changed
and
for Italy.
And he's in the friendly, exactly. We were like Brazil, you know, doing tick-attack football.
It's just like watching Brazil.
We are not going to progress as a nation with Roy Hodgson in charge of the national side. You have to have someone who's brave, and we said about younger players, the advantage of young players is they play with no fear. They play with no fear.
Sterling, 13 matches for Liverpool. Wilshere, 3 matches in 17 months.
Right.
Young has just come back off
but
an
if
injury.
it was
Welbeck doesn't play for Manchester United. Zaha has plays in the Championship. Bertrand's played 6 games for Chelsea this season. Jakes has played about 12 games for Arsenal. Corker's
have you seen
progressing well. Forster plays in Scotland. You know, there's no way in a million years this team would ever achieve anything.
Doran Solomon says
international friendlies. I think they're a complete waste of time.
This looks
That's
like
why
a
the
team.
players are in the squad. But if they're there, then play them.
It's a goal. This time it's gone to Sweden. They're ahead. Kenny.
I am like I said, my premonition about Joe Hart at this level has come true. A 35-yard free kick has gone like a grass cutter past England's so-called number one. What an absolute disgrace.
Good shot, though.
It was a great shot. It's a hat-trick for Ibrahimovic. He's probably going to be the hero, but really, Joe Hart, England's number one, a shot from 35 yards, England's number one. He's going to save it, isn't he, really? No, he didn't.
We should say that in the midst of all that mayhem, Wilfried Zaha has come on, Kenny.
Yeah, Wilfried Zaha's come on. So he's got his cap, so he's not... Like I said, I don't think he's going to do much in this time. Hopefully there'll be some injury time for him, maybe to make a pretty impression. But unbelievable! I'm stunned. Sweden did not look like winning this game at all, especially at the start we had in the second half. But ever since we've had the substitutions, Sweden has started to press the play. They're looking very dangerous. It's like Ibrahimovic. Everyone calls him world class, and you know who am I to argue with the majority? But really and truly, we're just paying him so much respect. He's no Messi, he's no Ronaldo, and we're just terrified of him. Absolutely terrified.
Well,
I'm not saying
he's not Messi or Ronaldo, and I've been down on him many times before because he's not performed. But tonight, you've got to say,
but if you look at
fantastic.
if you look at his international goal scoring for Sweden, it's nearly 1 in 2.
Yeah.
He's won every title in every major league apart from ours. So he plays for Barcelona, he goes to AC Milan, he goes to Inter Milan, and obviously he's in PSG. And he has to be world class, because he's done it on the international stage.
Well, everyone pays so much money for him each time. They can't all be wrong.
And his teams win titles.
Yeah.
Oh no! That is
Sweden have scored a fourth.
He's rubbish. He's rubbish.
And Ibrahimovic, who is absolutely no good,
Goalkeeper again.
has scored
Great
4.
finish that. That's
Kenny.
a brilliant goal.
Oh no!
That is a brilliant goal.
Oh no!
That is an absolutely brilliant goal.
Oh no! Can I? Next time I say that Ibrahimovic is not world class, please tell me to shut up.
Shut up!
What
me to
happened?
shut up. Joe Hart, the biggest liability this side of the river.
Oh my
Tim.
God!
He's just
That's
done ahead of
brilliant.
that. Ibrahimovic,
brilliant.
back to goal, overhead kick, unbelievable. His 4th goal. Oh my
That's
God!
one of the
I don't
great
know.
goals.
I'm
That's
lost for
quality.
words here. Joe Hart, you liability.
You have to say, that is one of the greatest goals I've ever seen.
That is incredible. And you know what normally happens? Ibrahimovic is 6'3", right? So the athleticism that he's shown to actually overhead scissor kick it and lob Joe Hart and the 2 centre-halves at the same time. And it's not as if he's in front of the goal. He's on the angle. He's out towards, put 10 yards in from the
He
touchline.
scores them goals all the time. Trust me, he scores them. What about the one he scored in the Euros, the volley?
Yeah, to be fair,
the side volley. You know,
that-
incredible goal
I think
again. He does that
that's
sort of thing all the
miles better.
time.
By the way, Joe Hart hasn't, when Kenny Ken said in the first 10 minutes, he's come for crosses, he's missed crosses, he's missed punches. His decision-making has been very poor. It doesn't mean to say he's not a brilliant goalkeeper, but tonight he hasn't been mentally right at all.
I just wonder whether he's not secure with the people in front of him, and he's worried about them, because he never makes. I mean, might make one of these for City, but not 4
I know,
in
but
a
having
game.
said that though, Penny, if you see the way that Lescott and company have been playing at Man City, Joe Hart has been outstanding because he's kept him in. He hasn't been. His concentration level's been really poor tonight. He's been all over the place. But that is. I think you're right. Without exaggerating,
That's one of the
that
best
is one of
goals
the
I've ever
greatest
seen.
goals. It is definitely.
It's
Do you know what?
An overhead scissors kick
On the volley, obviously.
on the volley from 30 yards
And
out.
do you know what?
20 yards out?
As he's hit it, right, he knows he's got a chance because he's got such a good connection. Because if you watch him as he's in the air, he's actually trying to turn around and look to see where the ball's gone. It's like a golfer, you think, I've hit a great shot there, and you look to see where it's gone. That's exactly.
Did he get booked for taking his shirt off?
I'll tell you, I wouldn't matter if he got sent off. It wouldn't make no difference, would it?
So it's Sweden 4, England 2.
When was the last time a player scored 4 goals against England?
I don't know. Butler, do you know?
I don't think it's ever happened.
Really?
I don't think anyone's ever.
Well, that's
scored 4
historic,
goals.
you know, as it should be when they're opening their new stadium. And it will be Roy Hodgson's first defeat. Let's find out the agony of Matthew Moore, the Northern Ireland supporter. They're up against Azerbaijan. It's a World Cup qualifier. They were losing. And in the torture chamber, what's happening now?
I don't want to watch anymore. I just brought up on the screen there, 75% of possession overall, the entire game. And, they brought on our saviour, our past saviour, David Healy, as a third substitution to try and boost the forward line. But what else can they do? I mean, they're missing chance after chance after chance. The goal's not coming.
Let's go to Matthew and see if the agony is over yet. Matthew?
that sums it up. You know, 6 minutes injury time. Just had a bit of a brawler on the pitch. David Hillies ended up getting booked. Azerbaijan are literally throwing themselves on the ground to kill time here, and Northern Ireland are on the attack again. What else can I say? It's been one of those nights where we've had at least... Hang on. No, sorry. Another chance missed again. The chances we've had, it's like watching schoolboy football.
Surely not, Matthew.
Yes! David Healy has come... 60 yards out, David Healy right through the bottom of the wall, right into the left-hand corner of the goalkeeper left stranded. 1-1. I'd say referee's going to play maybe another minute or two because there's more stoppages. David Healy, 36th goal for Northern Ireland tonight. Hopefully we can get another late one here, but the ball's finally hit the back of the net.
As I understand it, you were interested to talk about racism in sport, and it's one of the reasons why Peter's here.
Well, I think what's interesting about what Peter said, I actually feel like I agree with him on quite a lot of the points, but I think with regards to today's issue of institutional racism in football, I think before we start talking about that, we probably need to define our terms. So given that it's Peter who's used the term, I'd be interested if he could define what he means by institutional racism, and then after that, we can kind of talk about whether it exists or not.
Peter.
Well, the term originates from Lord Scarman in the 1981 reports on the Brixton riots. It was then coined by Lord Macpherson when he addressed racism, institutional racism, in the Metropolitan Police. And his description is appropriate. It's policies and practices, unwitting or otherwise, which lead to a differential treatment within an organisation on grounds of race, nationality, colour, ethnic origin, etc. And I think when we look at the FA at all levels, we see a board where I think there was the first woman appointed after 143 years, the only person of colour, as I'm aware, on the board. If you look down to how they record racial incidents, these are just examples because I'm limited in time, that the FA record racial incidents not on the Macpherson definition, which is now 14 years old, but on the basis of if an official at the level of the county FA think it is such. And that really is way behind what most institutions do.
I'm pleased to hear Peter sort of define institutional in that respect, because I think a lot of people, and this is partly one of the problems with delivering the term institutionally racist, when you talk about an organisation like that, what does it mean to the general public? And it doesn't mean the precise definition that you've just given. And that's partly the danger in which it's delivered, which I think a lot of the angst is around the way in which it's been delivered. And I was speaking to people today who former colleagues of mine who have left the FA and feel, quite honestly, they feel affronted by it because of the lack of definition. My understanding was that what you were saying was exactly that, and that is that this isn't about necessarily saying all the guys who operate in the organisation that their motivation is that they are racist, but that's how it's taken and that's how it's read. And that's what I think is probably at issue here. Because if you start to make statements like that, which go out to the general public, you're using the media, you're on the television here, you're using the press, then the people who read it will take that view. And I think if you start to do that, then that starts to make it divisive. And that is the issue. With regard to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're not saying that the people are racist. There is evidence that would lead you to believe that there's, if you like, I could call it systemic racism potentially. And if you look at the Stephen Lawrence issue, for me, that was the big thing. It was to move on and look at the systemic racism issues. So things that happen almost inadvertently as a consequence.
I've been in football for 20 years, and I was on 5 years on the FA, at the FA. I have not seen institutional racism. I've seen and heard racist comments. I've not actually come across a racist footballer, or indeed any member of the council, and I was there 5 years. In fact, what I did see was a constant drive towards improving. When you're saying that somebody is a racist on a football pitch, is he a racist? The comment's racist, but let me give you an example. I believe racism is premeditated. That is, if you premeditate, you are a racist. There's no question in my mind. If you write me a letter calling me an unpleasant racist comment, that you are a racist. No question in my mind about that at all. But are you a racist if in a combat on a football pitch and somebody kicks you and you turn around and you instantly say something terrible and then apologise? No, you can't. It's a moment of terrible pain.
I understand what you're saying, but for me, it's not acceptable.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying, but it's not acceptable.
But I also think from the FA's perspective, that's not an acceptable position either. A casual racist comments are not, and they've said that. And they've stood by that.
I mean, I think we get too carried up about comments. For the victim, and there is a victim, and we talked to some victims who were 14 years old, 13 years old, and they kept their cool. They didn't abuse back. They didn't fight. I would have fought, I think, as a kid, as a 14-year-old, and we had to. Yeah. That's how we dealt with it. So, but the abuse is for the victim.
Summary. I'm so
victim,
sorry, Peter. We're coming into a commercial break. Just give me a 15-second summary.
For the victim,
quantify a racist as
for the victim, it doesn't matter. For that split second, it doesn't matter. We don't care. The impact on the victim is the thing that you have to remember. I'm not interested in judging that person's whole character. That comment is enough. Meant or not meant doesn't matter.
But just to get sort of your reaction on the Rome derby, do you think, of course, it was a terrible moment for Daniele De Rossi. He literally just outright punched Stefano Mauri and was red carded. This is after he's been allowed to play in the position that he's so coveted under Zeman, you know, in that sort of central midfield role. Regista is what we like to call it. But this is what it is. Is he really a Zeman player? He's not someone who makes his runs from midfield. He's not really a playmaker. There's no really position for him there.
Most players are not Zeman players. Certainly not in the long term. He takes so much out of them that after 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, usually the players just hold their hand up and say, you know, we can't anymore. I think it's worse than Mourinho, because I think Mourinho makes sort of makes adjustments for human nature. I think Zeman is more like Bielsa, who in an ideal world would have robots playing for him that he can program exactly where they do, what they do, how much they run. And you know, Roma traditionally, but also, you know, a couple of years ago, was a completely different side. So
of course,
there will be conflicts, and I'm not sure they can be resolved, which begs the interesting question if we'll see a future for De Rossi for the Giallorossi, or they have to go and apply his trade somewhere else.
What could be more exciting than Sweden? What is it with them scoring 4 goals, and did Zlatan just prove that there's no one better than him except for maybe Ronaldo and Messi?
Ibrahimovic obviously was spectacular. He was in the mood, and he's finally done the thing that is the true mark of every great player in the world. He scored against an English team.
Oh.
So now his last doubt has disappeared.
Banished.
But he's back to another problem, which is that the accusation that he only turns out against really terrible teams, and he's a flat track bully.
It's only a friendly, right?
He was asked after the game, how would you rate your performances for Sweden from 1 to 10, and he said 10.
Do you not think that, you know, I mean, everyone seems to dislike him. Do you think the fact that he is so confident, a la Ronaldo, is what makes people sort of not big him up, let's just say?
Confidence is one thing. I think arrogance is another. And
doesn't he have the right to be arrogant?
He might have the right, but it's still his choice. And, you know, there are people, all sorts of people have the right to be arrogant, but chose to be humble still, and chose to be much more sociable, and don't always have to put themselves into the limelight. And I think Cristiano Ronaldo this week in a CNN interview talked about an image problem, which perhaps has held him back when it comes to individual awards like the Ballon d'Or. Now, you know, if you want to talk about Ibrahimovic having a shot, I don't think he has, because, you know, he is seen by too many people as someone who's only playing his own very individual game. Brilliant when it comes off. I think less brilliant for the rest of the team when it doesn't, because he is a guy who does what's right for Zlatan, not always what's right for the team.
And I do want to get a couple of updates just right at the start of this second half. Lee, how has it started?
Well, QPR started quite lively, and then they've just put, they've made a couple of changes. Mackey's now on. Then the QPR just put a cross in, and the Southampton goalkeeper come out. He was in no man's land. He didn't have to do it. And then Hoylett scored 2-1.
Hoylett has scored. Goodness me, we've timed that perfectly, didn't we? Hoylett has scored. What a huge goal that is at Loftus Road.
Yeah, can you put a bit more oomph into it, or what?
Goodness me, what a massive goal that is. So
That is squeaky
Junior
bum
Hoylett has
time.
scored. Absolutely
That is
squeaky
it.
bum time.
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden, the whole momentum could shift now towards Queen's Park Rangers. This is what they did last year. You remember, their whole season turned round on the back of them scoring 2 or 3 late goals at home to Liverpool.
Nigel Atkins will be going ballistic as well, because the goalkeeper coming out and making a ricket, he will be absolutely furious, as will Roberto Di Matteo. Let's go to the Hawthorns. Oh, we'll come to you in a second, David. Let's go to the Hawthorns. Let's go to the Hawthorns. Daniel Quinn's waiting to speak to us. Daniel.
Yeah, West Brom are taking a 2-1 lead. Billy Jones' cross has been headed in at the near post by Peter Odoringi. Great header, great cross. 2-1.
2-1 indeed. The shock is on at the Hawthorns. Let's go to Anfield. David Mears watching. Liverpool against Wigan. Who scored?
Have a guess. Have a little guess. Have a little guess, Darren. Go on, go on, have a guess.
Gerrard.
Luis Suarez.
Absolutely 100%. Give that man a dinner. Ball down the right-hand side. Sterling in. Pulls it back. Suarez, wallop, 1-0.
That's what Sterling does.
Yes, in fairness, he played it in perfect for him. Great goal.
Thanks, David. Jess Martin, Reading, Everton, goal.
We're at 1-0 here. It seems like at halftime, Brian McDermott put a rocket up the boys because Reading have come up. They've come out firing. They're pressing.
I wonder what the correct scoreline market is looking like in the City game.
Yeah, I mean, probably 6 or 7-0 looking decent runners now. 5-0. I said I thought under 3.5 goals at the decent bet in that game. I was rather smug after 40 minutes, and now suddenly 5 comes straight away. City are sending a big marker down. But Villa, don't give up on them. I think they've got a big win in them in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, look at the Man City and the Liverpool game now, suspended as far as the betting concerned. We'll give you a little bit up there on some more games with the betting markets, and it's just a little bit more.
Goal in the Championship. Burnley down to 10 men early on. Kieran Trippier sent off professional foul. Johnny Jackson then as his penalty saved. You think Chrissy Powell must be thinking, it's not going to be my day. Well, it is. Charlton go 1-0 up away at Burnley.
Bet Butler, as you know, he loves doing that. Really do apologise. I'm going to hand it back to you.
Yeah, it's the first time I've been interrupted by Flash today, but I'm sure it won't be last. But this is the man who's been interrupted most, and he loves it when you love it when that happens. It's your favourite part of the show.
5 times every week. I'm getting used to it now, definitely. I could hear him in the middle of the night, just go. Anyway, Man City. I did think they would destroy Villa today. That's proved to be the case because if you look at the scorelines in the last 3 times these sides have met at the Etihad, it was 4-1, 3-0, and 4-0. So there's history there. Swansea, of course, 1-0 up against Newcastle. Michu again with a header. That's his 4th header so far this season. That's more than any other player in the Premier League, and more than 12 Premier League teams altogether. So extraordinary stuff there. Suarez, like we said, 12. He's either scored or assisted in 12 of the 16 goals at Liverpool.
Championship, massive goal for Gianfranco Zola at Vicarage Road. Sorry, Chrissy Graham. I know I do it in the middle of the night, but I have to do it when someone scores. Watford 2, 10-man Wolves 1. Gianfranco Zola climbing the table.
Indeed, he is. Let's go back to Chris.
One day I'll get you.
I don't understand the point of points. If you're Roy Hodgson, obviously he's looking to qualify. I get it, but if you go back to Germany, what they did, you go to Spain, what they did, they actually thought, right, we have to have a new remit now, and they got rid of older players. Now,
So
Leon
the
Osman,
under-21s was the basis
exactly.
of their
Leon
team,
Osman
wasn't it?
has been excellent for Everton. I'm not saying he hasn't, but I don't see the future in Leon Osman. I just don't see the point of him being in there. But I don't.
Okay, so in your team, so Gerrard's a sentimental 100th cap.
No, he's not said no because
if you go for
he's
your young team.
He's in there on performance for Liverpool. He's in there because
you
he's
said
experienced.
you said well you need.
There's no one else.
Well, your argument there is cleverly.
No, I don't rate him. No, I just said I wouldn't have Tom Cleverley in my
If
team.
Parker was fit, would you play him?
Was Scott Parker?
If
was
Scott
fit?
Parker was
Not now,
fit.
no. I think no. I'd say thank you, Scott. You did brilliantly when you came in and played for England. You sort of played we needed at the time, but now we've got to be looking to play in a
Gareth
different
Barry?
way. All depends. again,
I think that game
available.
against Germany when we lost so heavily in.
Hello there, you're watching Sports Tonight Live, the home of opinionated, passionate but intelligent sporting debate. Coming up, the best bits of the week. Whatever you think of them, make sure you get in touch with your views at any time on Twitter @SportsTonightTV.
Just before the break, we were talking to Perry about his selection, who he'd like to see playing for England. Now we have a right of reply by Mr. Wayne Veazey of Goal.com.
Yeah, I'm going to get my red pen out and highlight where Perry's gone wrong.
In your opinion?
Yeah, in my opinion.
Yes.
Actually, the front six is quite reasonable. I don't know if Zaha is entitled to start, since he wasn't in the original squad. I'd go with Ashley Young out on the left. Wilshere, Gerrard, yeah, absolutely, they're the best two.
Would you just have Welbeck on his own, would you, or what?
No, Cleverly.
Oh, Cleverly.
The
World Cup. I just think
he looked like he was
very much a Fabio Capello player, wasn't he? Capello.
To me, he was so slow. I just think he cannot possibly.
We're
never going to win anything
Roy
with
Hodgson
that.
has picked 47 players.
47 so
I
far.
think that shows. Roy Hodgson, everybody knows, is 4-4-2. Like if you speak to anybody who was at Fulham, you speak to anyone at West Brom,
Changed
and
for
he's,
Italy.
and he's in the friendly. Exactly, we were Spain. We were like Brazil, doing tick-attack football.
Just like watching Brazil.
We are not going to progress as a nation with Roy Hodgson in charge of the national side. You have to have someone who's brave. And we said about younger players, the advantage of young players is they play with no fear. They play with no fear at all.
Let me just. Sterling, 13 matches for Liverpool. Wilshere, 3 matches in 17 months.
Right.
Young has just come back off
But
an
if it
injury.
was
Welbeck doesn't play for Manchester United. Zaha plays in the Championship. Bertrand's played 6 games for Chelsea this season. Jakes has played about 12 games for Arsenal. Corker's progressing well. Forster plays in Scotland. I'd go with Raheem Sterling as well. I think Cleverly
Tim Cleverly passes sideways.
Yeah.
Who never actually creates any chances, never takes initiative. I love to look at Tom Cleverly's stats for someone who supposedly plays the free sort of role and the creative role. How many goals he's created and how many goals he scored?
Sometimes, when he was at Leicester on loan, he scored a lot of goals. I think
But that's in the Championship.
Yeah, that is.
That's
Alongside Carrick, he's been quite effective for Manchester United in bigger games. I think he's developing. He's not developing quickly. I don't think he's a superstar, but I think he's solid. And in terms of the back five, I'd go with the best available back five. I think England should pick for the first 45 minutes. I think they should pick.
Well, what do you
something
learn?
Well,
but to have international friendlies, everybody's saying we've got to have these friendlies because we have to learn because we don't know what these players.
Let me just read out some of the tweets. It's high time I did. @Sports Tonight TV. Thank you for everyone who's already tweeted us. Loads to get through here. David Bomb says, I think friendlies against minnows are pointless, but an away game against Sweden with our injury list is a brilliant test.
We'll see. It's not competitive.
Perry, you said to me, what do we learn? Well, if you put Hart, Jagielka and Cahill together, that's a back three that's probably going to be round thereabouts in February for the next qualifier.
You already know what they can do. You've already seen that they can. Cahill's play for England.
Well, they're not that often. We're not
talking
like 60 caps each together, have we?
But for international friendlies, are nowhere near as pressurised as qualifying games. Look at the Italy game.
Well, Mike McKenna's come up with a good point. He says the problem with this one is the timing. Even with the new ideas and new players, there are 3 months before our next competitive game.
Play Brazil, I think, in February, isn't it?
So what are we losing?
Yeah.
It's what?
It's against Brazil in February, is that?
Yeah, that's a friendly. But our next competitive game is not for
that's
months.
San Marino,
Yeah.
so that's not exactly competitive, is it?
Let's have a look. There's another one here. What about Leon Osman? Says Bren B. Not in your team.